My mom kicked me out, cause stepdad and his kids hate me, but I own the house. When I turned 18, my grandpa left me his house in his will. It wasn't huge or fancy, just a normal 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood. The lawyer said I could sell it or rent it out, but my mom asked if she could live there instead. She was going through a divorce from my dad and needed somewhere affordable. I said yes immediately because she's my mom. The lawyer set it up so my name stayed on the deed, but mom could live there as long as she wanted. I moved into the dorms for college and everything was fine for about 2 years. Then mom started dating this guy named Rick. Rick had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Brandon and Kaylee, both around 16. They all moved into the house together and suddenly my occasional weekend visits became super awkward. Rick would make comments about me eating their food or using too much hot water when I showered. His kids acted like I was some random guest invading their space. Last Thanksgiving, I came home for the week and Brandon was sleeping in my old bedroom. All my stuff was shoved into boxes in the garage. Mom said they needed the extra room and I barely lived there anymore anyway. I was annoyed but didn't make a big deal about it. Then this past summer I came home for a weekend and Rick met me at the door. He didn't even let me inside. He said the family was having private time and I should have called first. I looked past him and saw Brandon and Kaylee on the couch watching TV. Mom was in the kitchen cooking. I called mom later and she apologized, saying Rick was just protective of his space and didn't mean anything by it. His space. I let it go because I didn't want to cause problems. But 3 weeks ago I showed up on a Friday afternoon and my key didn't work. They'd changed the locks. I knocked for like 10 minutes before Kaylee finally opened the door. She rolled her eyes and yelled for Rick. He came to the door and told me I couldn't just show up whenever I wanted anymore, that I needed to respect that this was their home now and I was being rude by not calling ahead. I tried explaining that this was my house, that grandpa left it to me. Rick laughed in my face. He said my mom owned the house and I was just a kid who didn't understand how adult relationships worked, that I needed to grow up and stop mooching off my mom's generosity. Mom appeared behind him and didn't say anything to correct him. She just stood there looking uncomfortable. Rick told me I wasn't welcome anymore, that his kids didn't feel safe with some random college kid having keys and coming around whenever. Then he shut the door in my face. I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to process what just happened. Finally, I called the lawyer who handled Grandpa's will, explained the whole situation. He said we needed to have a conversation with my mom immediately. The next day, the lawyer and I showed up at the house. Rick answered looking annoyed and tried to close the door, but the lawyer put his hand up. He introduced himself and said we needed to discuss the property deed. Rick called for my mom. She came to the door and her face went white when she saw the lawyer. The lawyer very calmly explained that I was the legal owner of the property, that my name was on the deed, not my mom's, that she was living there as a favor from me, not the other way around. Rick's face went from confused to angry to pale in about 5 seconds. He started arguing that they'd been paying all the bills and maintaining everything. The lawyer cut him off, said that didn't change who owned the house. Rick turned to my mom asking if this was true. She nodded, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Turns out she never told Rick or his kids that the house was actually mine. They all assumed it was hers. The lawyer handed Rick an envelope. Inside was a formal 30-day notice to vacate the property. I was exercising my right as the owner to reclaim my house. Rick started yelling about how unfair this was, how they had nowhere to go. The lawyer just repeated that they had 30 days and left. I looked at my mom and asked why she never stood up for me. She said she thought I'd understand that she was trying to build a new family. I told her she could have built one that included me instead of one that kicked me out of my own house. They moved out 3 weeks later. Mom left her key on the kitchen counter with a note saying I was being selfish. Rick's kids posted all over social media about how I was a terrible person for making them homeless. But here's the thing, they weren't homeless. Rick had his own place he'd been renting out. They just didn't want to live there because it was smaller. I changed the locks, moved my stuff back into my old bedroom, and got 2 roommates from college to help with bills. My house, my rules, my peace and quiet.